Hello and welcome to the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my co-host, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm a simple man, but I am very happy about something that I want to take some time to talk. I'm kind of proud I had a awesome thing happen yesterday. I went miniature golfing with my son, and I got a hole-in-one, so I got a free round of miniature golf. So I'm walking on air.
You just told any potential stalkers where you mini golf. There, we saw the logo there. That's
true. I should maybe we can get them to endorse us. So Forsyth Miniature Golf, if you're listening to this in Carnegie, PA, hit us up.
We just spoke with Chris Martin, the principal trumpeter of the New York Philharmonic, who is frustratingly nice and down to earth and one of the best trumpet players to ever live. But I like the fact that after we just recorded the bonus episode, that he literally signed off by reciting a fake Justin Bieber quote.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, so that kind of tells you how things went. So
yeah.
It was great. What a fascinating career.
For sure. And actually, if you are someone who is annoyed by us going off on tangents and telling stories that have nothing to do with the guest, you'll be happy, because this one was like lots and lots of actual content.
It was a high percentage of content. So I think that we should punish those people, though, by making this intro like 17, 18 minutes long. What do you think? I don't even have anything planned. We could just vamp. So
yeah, that's true.
No, we ended up talking a lot about the audition that he won for the Philadelphia Orchestra when he was 22. We didn't intend to talk about it at length. I mean, and that was what I first asked him about. But his process, where he had this audition journal, and he was taking notes in between rounds, and it was like he had a system that was really fascinating, to the point where I just like kept bringing us back around to it. And I'm glad that I did each time. As I mentioned in the interview, you're not supposed to be like, hey, you know that thing we were talking about 15 minutes ago? Let's bring that back up. That's like bad interviewing. But I'm glad I did both times, because there was like way more to unpack there. It's sort of really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a conversation about process that doesn't feel like a conversation about process. Like, it just seemed very organic and interesting.
Yeah, very well put. Very well put. Yeah, he's been in the principal trumpet of the Chicago Symphony and the principal trumpet of the New York Philharmonic, right? I mean, yeah, like effectively replacing Bud Herseth and Phil Smith.
Right.
It's like, wait, what? Like, what do you? That's quite a career. That's quite a career.
Yeah. Well, and if you're watching this, which is a new thing, you didn't used to be able to do that.
That is the other thing that was the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned, was that we've moved this to YouTube as well. The podcast is still going to remain exactly as is. We don't have a URL for you yet, because it's all, it will link in the show notes, but we don't have a URL to share with you, because you don't get a customized YouTube link until you have 100 subscribers and 30 days. So please go subscribe. Click the link and subscribe. And we'll also be throwing other content up there as well, but we're going to be doing video versions of these from now on, in addition to, Will Houchin, our third partner here at Petalone Media, does amazing work with video and all that stuff. And Lance and I, we realized that was possible, and he was like, I'll make it look amazing. And we were like, we could ask questions, which won't help him or us, or he could just make it happen. So Will's a just make it happen kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, it's kind of cool to see where Chris does his work. We did the interview from this like phone booth that he has constructed in his New York City apartment to keep the noise from annoying everyone around him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of fascinating to see his workspace.
And he has a painting. I won't spoil it, but he has a painting from a famous brass player
up
in his practice space. So, so go check that out on YouTube. If you want to listen to the bonus episode, we started the bonus episode asking him what it was like the first concert that he ever played as the principal trumpeter of the Chicago Symphony. And, boy, they played Shostakovich 6. And, that was he did a good job of, I felt like I was there. His description was really great. If you want to learn about that, go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. You can immediately gain access to tons of bonus episodes with lots of guests. We talk to every guest after the actual interview for the bonus episode, which is available exclusively through Patreon. Thanks to everybody who's left a rating and a review. And, we actually remembered to do the sponsors in the middle of this one. So, all right, we need 13 more minutes of intro. What do you want to talk about, Lance?
I just watched the Bill Burr thing where he insults all of the people of Philadelphia.
That is one of the most classic. That is.
That was really something.
The people who are the biggest fans of that clip that I know are people who are from Philly. That's like, it's a brilliant. Yeah, he starts getting heckled. I think he's in Camden.
Right.
New Jersey, just right across the river. At that huge. I don't know what it's called now. It was the E Center for a while, but and he. I mean, it's like, how long? Remind me, it's like 12 minutes, right?
Yeah, I think 13, because he pauses every time a minute passes to let the crowd know how much time is left, that he's going to be calling them terrible names.
It is amazing. It's one of the most impressive clips on YouTube. I mean,
there are some insensitive words and ideas in there. So I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying that I'd heard enough about it that I wanted to watch it. And so I watched Joe Rogan and Bob Saget talking about it, and then I listened to Bill Burr on his podcast talking about his recollection of it, and then I listened to it. I watched it. Yeah.
Yep. We say a couple of bad words in this episode, which is why it's marked explicit. It is nothing like that Bill Burr clip.
No. It is not.
Yeah, that one will make you blush in a few times. Yeah. Sure. So anyway, all right. Is there anything I'm forgetting?
13 minutes. No.
Should we just leave dead silence?
That's a good idea.
Well, without further ado, here is the wonderful conversation that we had with the principal trumpet of the New York Philharmonic, Chris Martin. And today on the Brass Junkies, this is already going well. I'm trying the interview. I'm trying to do the intro here. Our guest is laughing through the intro. This is already a disaster. Chris Martin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, man? It's good to see you guys.
Yeah, it's good to be seen. It's good to see you too. When I think of great brass players who are just waiting for their break, to really kind of get some traction in the business, I think of you. So, but you just keep plugging away. It's admirable.
I'm glad somebody thinks of me. That's nice. I have to say, I haven't seen you in a while, and I've listened to you now for a little bit, and your hair fantastically matches your voice.
Pretty incredible, isn't it?
It is.
I think the last time I saw you, I was at Midwest. It was right after you had played Mahler 7, and you had played the crap out of Mahler 7.
Yeah.
And it was a matinee, and we bumped into each other at Intelligentsia Coffee afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was getting a coffee, and then you walked in, and that was... But yeah, I'm guessing that was... I haven't been to Midwest in a long time. That's got to be pushing close to 10 years, maybe a little less than that. But
yeah, that was a while back. A while back. Yeah, I think I burned my chops on coffee that day, too.
You were so excited to get to see me that you just dove in. Yeah. So you have, for anyone who doesn't know your bio, which is probably not a huge subset of our listeners, you joined the Philadelphia Orchestra when you were 22 as the associate principal trumpet. You then moved on. How many years were you in Philly?
3.
3 years. Then you moved on to principal trumpet of the Atlanta Symphony. And how long were you there?
Yeah, 5 great years.
5 great years. And then you were
principal. Lousy ones? I was there for 14 years. I had 5 great years there.
and they were not in a row either. Yeah, it was real hit or miss there.
Well, I grew up there for 18, so that should tell you something.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about the whole homecoming angle of that. And then you decided you needed a little bit more space between you and your family, so you moved to Chicago. And as one does. And then you were principal trumpet of Chicago for 11 years. I didn't realize that you were there for that long until I was researching this. And now you've been principal trumpet of the New York Phil for 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, three. I mean, 3.5. This last
Right.
year is kind of a half.
So yeah, you've had a pretty good streak. Let's start here. How it's not common for someone to win a job as large as the Philadelphia Orchestra at the age of 22.
No.
How did you go about winning that audition? I mean, you obviously play really well, but you know a lot more than me. But auditions are like their own thing, right? I mean, it's like it's not just how well you play. So can you maybe talk about that a little, about how your approach to that was?
Yeah, I think I got, as with anybody who makes it into any gig in music, I think no matter what the gig, you've got to get lucky. And I think to end up in a job you like or love is you get really lucky. And so a lot of my life has been a lot of great fortune. And I had parents who were in music, music teachers, and so they supported and steered. I had a fantastic teacher from the time I was 12 years old, who was a great fundamentals pedagogue. And but as far as that particular audition, I'd taken a lot of auditions through all my undergrad. So I'd failed a lot. I think by the time I took that audition in Philly, I'd taken over 20 through my 4 years at Eastman. And so I didn't play a lot of recitals at Eastman, which I regret looking back. I played a lot of brass quintet, played in a lot of jazz band, played a lot of concert band, very little orchestra, but I took a lot of auditions. And I sort of looked at those as that was my solo performance experience, and I kind of tried to look at them always as a chance to just play a recital. And so by the time I went to Philly, I had a lot of experience at failure. I failed a lot, and somebody told me years ago that you should keep a notebook, keep a practice log, but keep an audition log too. So I kept an audition log, and those old composition notebooks. I don't know if anybody uses those anymore, but I filled 3 of those things up my last year of school. With practicing in auditions, and my audition book was just basically a list of all of my failures, everything I did wrong. And it was really super useful because it gave you something to do when you're like depressed and frustrated and angry after an audition round, but also right after that's over and you kind of still have adrenaline. That was always, for me, that was when I'd remember every detail. So it kind of gave me something to do and helped me focus down on the little things. And right before, I'd been at National Repertory Orchestra that summer before. And
which summer was that?
97.
I was there the next year.
Nicely
just missed each other.
Oh wow. So that's the year the village burned down, right? Did you have anything to do with that? No.
I've been told not to talk about it.
I hear you. So that was a great summer at NRO. Amazing concerts, a great section. Billy Hunter was there.
Nice.
Kevin Finnemore.
Wow.
In Dallas. It was an awesome section.
Wow.
Dave Garcia was playing trombone. He's in Switzerland. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, so I had a ton of time to practice and ended up in New World Symphony for a couple weeks playing there beforehand, just kind of last minute. Jack said he won his gig in Cleveland and left, and then I came in for a couple weeks. So I had nothing to do but practice and think about what it was like to live out of your car, because that's what I've been doing all summer. And I went to Philly on the way to a trial week in Buffalo. We're going to play a trial weekend with the Buffalo Phil. And it was that trial for that first trumpet job was between me and Alex Jacopi. And so the Philly audition was the weekend right before that. And so Alex and I ended up in the finals together, I think, or semifinals together. And it was just funny how life works. You kind of see the same people everywhere you go, which is a good lesson. Be nice to everybody, because you never know. And so anyway, I kind of showed up in Philly. I knew the orchestra. I knew Dave Bilger's playing. I knew them from records and recordings, but I'd never heard them live. And I sort of felt focused, nervous, but kind of free to just play, because I just looked at it like I have no chance in hell to win this job, like none, And I was like, I didn't know anything about the scene. At that time, I didn't know anybody who'd ever gone to the Curtis Institute, just because in my little world from Eastman, and I just kind of played every round and kind of stayed focused on my thing, and didn't really go out and see the town, didn't really do any of that stuff. I just kind of did my thing, and I got lucky. I think and that's so much of it is that. It's preparation is huge, being ready to give everything you got when it's your chance, but it's also just getting lucky too. So,
Well, what do you mean? What does getting lucky mean?
well, I mean, I think you
You
got.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there is that cliche, you make your own luck, and to an extent that's true. You know, if you can't play, if you don't have the chops, if you don't know the tunes, if you haven't done your sight reading, if you can't transpose into F, you know, which I'm not sure I can still do, but I can fake.
Isn't that what assistants are for?
That's what computers are for now. No, but so I think you make your own luck to an extent, but at the same time, I played a lot of auditions where I played great. I thought I played really well, but it wasn't I wasn't what they were looking for. It just wasn't it. And I think about that audition in Philly. I was a young kid, and I could have easily said, you know what, this kid's not quite ready, because I heard that several times over my audition career. So, you know what, you're a nice player, you sound good, but it's just not quite time yet. We're going to take this person who has more experience. And that could have easily happened there. And, you know, who's to say what would have happened? I think I would have kept fighting and kept struggling, and I would have ended up somewhere for sure. I think stubbornness and tenacity is way more important than talent and ability when it comes to being a musician, especially being a brass player. I mean, my old teacher, Larry Black, played forever in the Atlanta Symphony. He told me one of my first lessons, he said to me, because I was playing and it just wasn't good, you know, it wasn't happening. And he said, look, tell you what, let's start over. Let's warm up again. And that's when he taught me really how to warm up on a trumpet. And he said to me, never forget this. No matter how good you sounded yesterday, or no matter how bad you sounded, you wake up tomorrow morning and you got to start all over. Every brass player in the world, no matter who they are, every morning they start from the beginning. And that really stuck with me, because that's been not only true for me in my playing life, but that's maybe one of the most important things that's helped me keep my face together and keep my sound and progress, you know, maybe not like a bell curve, but to progress slowly and steadily through all these years. So,
What was it in that second warm-up that was different? I'm guessing it wasn't the exercises or the sequence of them. I'm guessing it was what was behind them, or the intent, or the...
Yeah, you know, what I remember about that, and what I've kept with me in my practice life, is just to slow down, especially the beginning. My warm-up is the first 15, 20 minutes. My wife will come in sometimes and say, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were doing anything. Have you been playing? Are you watching? Are you watching cartoons? What are you doing?" Does anybody watch cartoons anymore? Do they have Saturday morning cartoons? Do you remember those?
They do, but they're not on Saturdays anymore.
Yeah.
They're all every day Saturday.
That's pretty much right.
Yeah. So I remember what I got from him, from Larry, was to slow down the beginning. You know, slow down, get your breath going, get your lips going, get the mouthpiece buzz going. Then you play the horn, and then when you get into the horn, then you're ready. Then your body's ready, your mind is ready, you're flowing, and you're forward, and you're connecting. And that was it. You know, I used to warm up just thinking, well, what do I have to play for him? I got to play, you know, I got to play pictures. Okay, so I'm gonna warm up on my C trumpet, and I'll play in the range of pictures. And that doesn't accomplish much of anything, right? So kind of for me, that's what I got out of it, was just to get to the most basic fundamentals of brass playing. What makes a good sound? You know, good wind, warm lips, connection, and that was what did it. And I think, you know, being aware of those things. You know, when you're 14, 15 years old, I wasn't aware of. I was aware of, like, the textbook. You know, what my father always told me about what made a good brass sound, but to really experience it yourself, the difference between a free breath and a tight breath, or a low resonant breath and a high tight breath, and what it really felt like to have warm lips versus tension everywhere. You know, tension here, tension in your throat, tension in your upper chest. So experiencing those things.
Well, and you said that your teacher through school, through your younger days, there was a focus at, if I'm remembering right, there was a focus on the fundamentals.
Absolutely, yeah.
it's we just did this summer workshop thing a few weeks ago, and that was if there was something that came up more than anything, I think that was it. Just a return to the basics or a focus on the fundamentals of playing, which I think is just so easy to overlook and forget. Well, and you've mentioned your dad a couple of times, so let's talk about him. So Freddie Martin is your pa, and Freddie is one of my favorite humans. Maybe he beat you as a child. I don't know, but I like him.
Oh, what a sweetheart of a man.
Only emotionally. Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. So you had this sort of this trifecta, right? I mean, with your dad, who's, in my experience, there's a real sort of common sense approach and a fundamental based approach, and then you get handed off to a teacher, and then you have this experience down the road. So how much, if any, sort of formal training did you have from Freddie?
From Freddie? He was my first teacher. So he's a horn player, and we had horns laying around the house, so he really wanted me to go that route. He really wanted me to be the next, what is a horn player, famous horn player's name? There aren't any, that's right. So he wanted me to be a horn player. And I thought, at first I thought, okay, all right, I'll try that. That sounds fine. I was 9 years old. Sure, let's try it. So I played it for 2 weeks and hated every single minute. Hated every minute of it. Hated holding the thing. Hated the way it smelled. Hated just, like having to carry it on the school bus and banging into people and then punching me in the shoulder because I hit the guy, with the bell, and the whole thing. Hated the whole thing. Hated.
I respect that thorough of a hatred of something. That's hate how it smelled.
Hated the stupid gray color of the plastic case it came in. Everything.
Yeah, man.
And
let it out.
Yeah, let it all out.
You guys, it's been so long.
If you got a couch, you can lay down and get comfortable if you want. Let's unpack your whole childhood here.
Woo. It's gonna be a while. So he taught me for 2 weeks, and by the end of that 2 weeks, I like to say we were barely speaking to each other. He said, "Do it this way," and I'll do it my way, and whatever. But what I really,
I'll put my hand where I want.
But what I really wanted to do is I really wanted to play the trumpet, and I just hadn't had the nerve to tell him, because all he ever told me was, I'm from the earliest memories. I remember, marching band practice, and I remember, being on like drum corps buses, and I remember listening to recordings of the CSO, and then I remember my father telling me this phrase: "Trumpet players are a dime a dozen. You need to play a real instrument." That's all I remembered, and I think
I didn't think I could love your father any more than I already did, and here we are.
Yeah, so it took me a while to get up the courage to tell him I wanted to be a dime a dozen.
I want to make sure I get that down, man. That's going into the show notes for sure.
Yeah, Sam Palafian raised me to hate trumpet players, so I'm just bracing for for my son to come home and just be like, "Hey, Dad, I'm a trumpet player now." Yeah, it seems like that's the way that this is going to go down. So.
I hope that doesn't happen to you.
I'll call your dad and say I need to. Yeah, Lance is definitely hoping that happens. So yeah, and Sam, wherever he is, will be laughing hysterically. Yeah, so yeah, I think we can all see that coming.
Yeah.
So that's wild. So you then started. What age were you when you picked up the trumpet for the first time?
I was right about 10. I was just about turning 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a gap though. You didn't go horn straight to trumpet. It was horn to nothing to trumpet, or
no, I went straight to trumpet. It all happened over a summer.
Okay.
It all happened kind of really fast in between. I think it happened basically between the end of DCI tour and the start of school.
Got it.
I played horn for 2 weeks and switched right to trumpet.
But
he was in all seriousness, he was really supportive and found a great teacher for me, a guy named Richard Selby, who went to Northwestern, and his band director has been for a long time. So
you were marching, or you were just with your dad on tour? You were in a junior corps, or what were you doing?
I marched 1 year with Spirit of Atlanta.
I see.
After high school, but at that time I was just on tour. I just rode the buses all summer. So I spent every summer on drum corps tour from the time I was about, I think I was 3 until I was about 11 or 12, something like that.
Wow.
I learned a lot of things, very few of which I can talk about.
Yeah, I was going to say. Statute of limitations is not up on any of that.
I remember, I remember being completely obsessed with semis. I was such like a classic trumpet player case. Like even at 5 years old, just staring at like the lead sopranos when they play high notes, just going, it was just like a wistful Hollywood moment. Like someday.
I like
me up there.
Hold on, time out. I like how you just put the fact that you were like such a stereotypical trumpet player. You put it in past tense. I saw you you kind of snuck that in there. That I used to be. So
no, I think I'm a really like I'm a well-rounded guy now. Like I read a book every now and then.
What book or what was the last book that you read?
It's a lie. I haven't read books. I don't.
You're
I'm
not
waiting for somebody. If somebody will write a book about Jens's life, I will read that book.
Right? Yeah.
It'd be scratch and sniff.
I mean, I could definitely provide a chapter, or three. The problem is there's a lot of us that could provide a few. There's some people that could provide like 15 chapters. It'd be more like a series.
Who writes the epilogue to that book? That's what I want to
Yeah.
It's got to be Jen, I think.
Jen,
It probably would be. She's had the front row seat for a long time. You're not supposed to go way back in an interview, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your Philly audition. I have two specific questions.
Yep.
One was that you said that you knew that you had no chance of winning, and I'm wondering if you think that actually ended up being an advantage for you. Like, did that help you stay in the moment?
Yeah, 150%.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that the biggest lesson I learned from that 3-day experience was that the job I'd wanted the most up to that point had been actually in the Atlanta Symphony. It had been early in my undergrad, and I knew at that job I knew I had no chance at that one either because I think I was still 17 when that job came out. I took the audition, but wasn't remotely ready, emotionally. In terms of maturity, but what I learned from that, when you want something, when you want to win the thing way more than you just care about what it takes to actually do that, you have. I wouldn't say you have no chance, but it puts a lot of extra pressure on yourself. And by the time I got to Philly, I was only 22, but I'd failed in orchestra auditions 24 times. And all I wanted to do at that point, was string together as many rounds as I could of just playing the best I could. Not even being perfect, just playing the way I knew I could play, the way I could play in a practice room. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't care if I won the job. I'd always heard that Philly was a crap town, and I was like, who knows if I could even, if I even won the job, of course I would take it. But I was like, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about winning the gig. I didn't think about, where would I live? I've had so many friends text me and students text me after they get to a semifinal and say, man, where would I live if I get this job? Like, no, that is not what you think about. You just think about playing the next tune they put on the stand the best you can. Play the next tune, and that's all I tried to do in Philly. I was actually, you're absolutely right. I was totally free of expectation. I was free of stress or demand from myself or from anybody else. And I remember I won the job, and Freddie, when I called him, and Freddie said, you can never be an Eagles fan. But it was like, that, they didn't even know they sort of knew I was there, but I didn't talk about it because I didn't care if I won or lost. I assumed I would lose. Of course, I was thrilled, beyond thrilled. I cried when I won, but I was in shock for days and days and days because I just was trying to play my best for once because I felt I had never in 24 auditions, not one time had I played the way I could play in front of people on the stage.
Wow.
That's awesome.
What stopped you? Why was that the case?
I think I get a lot in my own head, and this has been the big issue to deal with over my life and my career, my maturation, whatever that is, such as it's been, is to balance balance the self-analysis with the ability to switch it off and just play in a free and extroverted way. And that's what I had started to finally figure out right about there. Was I could play all these things, but I was much more comfortable playing them alone than I was playing in front of an audience. And for me, there were a couple things that flipped that switch, but the biggest one was just, like, get out of your head, like, quit being selfish. It's not all, music is not about you. Even as a trumpet player, it's hard to admit that, but music is not about me. It's not even about the people on the stage. It's about what we make for everybody in the room. So that was a small part of that, flipping that switch. But
wow.
Did you talk to anybody about that? You just sort of had a light bulb moment and figured that out. I mean, did you do any research?
I talked a lot. I mean, I talked a lot to Charlie Geyer, my old teacher back in those days, about it. And he told me, man, he probably wouldn't mind me saying this, but he went through a similar period in his career when he was in Chicago that, he just felt that he had to find his mission again and find his purpose in music, and he did, and ended up in a much, much happier place. And that's sort of what since those days I've tried to surround myself with people in my musical life who work hard, who try the best they can, but who also love it and find joy in it. And that's, I don't know, that's for me, that was always the thing. I loved to play more than I loved the competitive side. I loved to play more than I cared about winning. And so for me, I wouldn't say I was shy or timid at all, but the competition side, the win-lose side, the winning-losing side of it was always a little bit uncomfortable for me. And I had to be honest, I had to get my heart broken and crushed and disappointed by a bunch of, bad auditions and bad concerts, to be perfectly frank, as a student. And I had to build up enough I had to build up kind of enough of a callus to get mad and get a little pissed off and say, you know what, like, as a great former colleague of mine in Chicago used to say, you know what, man, nice guy's not a job. Like, nobody in this business is going to pay you to be a nice guy. So, and that is absolutely the truth. Maybe not you guys. You guys are fantastic, wonderful people.
We've totally monetized being wonderful humans. Yeah.
But,
I don't even know where the checks come from, but they come regularly. So. Yeah.
Yeah, but so for me, it was those two things together. It was being able to eventually get mad enough and focused enough that I would turn off the analysis and turn off the judgment and the self-critique and just play. It was that, and then finding the focus that came from that. And that's what I remember about when that finally happened for me in Philly. And thank God it did, because when I started in the job, suddenly, like, you're on to play 3-4 concerts a week. My second week in the job, we played in Carnegie Hall.
Oof.
I'd never even set foot in there, not even as an audience member. And suddenly I realized, okay, well, you really need to focus now, like, early and often. And I tell my students that too, like that the audition is a massive hurdle to get over psychologically. For some, not for all, but once you're over it, there's a completely different race. Then it turns into a marathon. You get your powerlifting over with. Now you gotta run 26 miles for a year or 2 years of probation. So you can do it day in and day out, and be a decent human being. So.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, you're good at putting all that stuff into words. Your brother warned us that you're not very articulate, but I'm not sure I agree with his assessment. So
I'm fairly certain that he was kicked in the head by a horse when he was younger. So.
We're going to talk about him a little bit more in just a little bit, but I want to take a moment to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model Tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke Model Euphonium mouthpiece.
Oh, yeah!
You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you, Lance, as always, for making that ad read just always so smooth for me. I'm going to go back to the audition thing one more time, just because I really want to hear about your journal, about your audition journal. I think that we will get some angry emails if you mention that you had a journal and neither one of us goes, what was in that? So just to stave off the angry emails, what was in that journal? And did that take the place of you analyzing, like, in the moment?
Yeah, I would say so. It did take the place. It gave me somewhere to put all those thoughts after the fact.
Sure.
Because I don't know if you know this, but trumpet players can be obsessive.
What?
Anal retentive.
What? No.
And a little bit high maintenance.
I've no.
That's
Lance?
going to be my new ringtone. I'm just going to loop that. Anytime anybody calls me, it'll be your voice saying that.
So the journal doesn't really help with much of that. It doesn't really fix personality disorders. but it really. But so this is basically what I would do is I would, one of the big problems I had was I'd go into an audition, get there, you don't know when you're going to play. You're going to play between 9:30 and 10:15, and maybe you will and maybe you won't. And so I would play, I'd do the classic like warm up, keep warming up, keep touching the horn, keep going, and then so by the time you get on the stage, your lips feel like like two pieces of paper,
like Jens's.
You were just looking for something. I was wondering, like, what do you have in that little practice room? If you pulled up like a piece of bacon and then a shovel, I thought, oh, cool.
Aww.
He likes to hang out. He only comes in here when I have to do this kind of thing. This is it.
For anyone listening and not watching, yeah, he just held up a. Well, I was going to say his cat. I hope it's his cat. If not, someone in the New York area is missing a cat. Yeah.
He's a good dude. He's 17. He's been around a long time.
Whoa.
Wow.
What's the cat's name?
His name is Stuart.
Stuart.
Say hey, Stuart. He's
Hey,
been around
Stuart.
a while.
Oh, I
Stuart
thought
with
you
a
were talking
Stuart
about-
with a U.
With
So
a U.
so what I put in the journal, we went from journal to personality disorders to the cat. I took notes as fast as I could when I'd finish a round. And as many details as I could remember, I'd throw them down. And then it just gave me something to do for that downtime. And then I realized when I was, this mistake I'd make where I'd practice I'd warm up too much and keep touching licks and keep trying this and keep trying that. Like you can't, when you get to an audition, it's too late to practice. And it took me far too long to figure that out. But it's way too late to practice. You have to trust the effort and all the work you put in. And hopefully you've put in enough in the days and weeks before that when you get there on the day, you can just say, you know what? I'm done. I'm done practicing. I'm done trying. I'm going to do this, and whatever happens, happens. And so I'd use it for that too. I'd fill up. I'd write thoughts. I'd write ideas for, something else to try for the next time. So my chops might feel a little looser, or a little less tired, or a little more played in, or whatever. I just write little thoughts like that. Like, so maybe next time I should try warming up. So today I warmed up for this round. I warmed up, an hour and a half ago. That seems not quite right. So maybe next time I'll get up earlier and warm up 2 hours before, 3 hours before. See if that feels better. So I'd write things like that, just little ideas so that I wouldn't forget them. Because then you get in the audition and you play, and if you don't win, that day would just become like, well, that sucked. I didn't win. That was a failure. So that way I had more concrete thoughts to kind of think about, and it ended up helping me feel like I had done everything I could, and it sort of in a weird way in my mind, it gave me permission to just let go completely on stage, and that once I started to figure that out, it became really addictive, and it became addictive to get out on the stage and feel free of all that stuff, to feel free of like what etude should I practice that would complement Mahler 9, or how many Clark studies should I play today, or all those things. Why are my soft chops so bad? And so like just to quantify a little bit, and I didn't take like pages and pages and pages and pages. It wasn't like Unabomber level. Terrifying.
Wasn't a manifesto on a typewriter. Oh, there's that Martin kid again. He brought his typewriter into the warm-up room.
Dateline, Philadelphia. This end. Well, it's interesting. You gave yourself permission. Like, you didn't tell yourself, I'm not going to critique what I'm doing. I'm going to critique what I did after I did it.
Exactly.
And so you time shifted that assignment, and you freed up your brain to just execute the art, knowing that you'll go back in after the fact and do the autopsy.
That's kind of brilliant.
That's exactly right. That's exactly it. And I do the same thing. I do the same thing to a lesser extent with orchestra concerts now. It's more sort of I can sort of file it in my brain better. I do keep a notes still if I figure something out that works really well for a. I remember the first time I ever played Zarathustra, it scared the shit out of me. Like, it was scary to me, that piece.
Does that have a big trumpet part?
It was big to me. There's a couple times you're like, it's pretty lonely out here,
right?
And but Alpine Symphony, love that piece. Like, that one doesn't stress me out. I love to see that thing coming. But Zarathustra, for me, the first time I played it in my mid-20s was very scary, and it was like, it wasn't like your career's over, but it was like, probably no one's gonna look me in the eye for a couple of days.
I love that there's wiggle room in between, like, your career's over and it going well, and it's like, no, they just avoid eye contact. Yeah, just in case I have to check in with him on his feelings, and then we have to have an unpleasant conversation. I'll just move right along.
It wasn't they'll never forget this ever. It was they'll forget this by next Christmas. Pretty sure. So anyway, so I figured out the next time it came around, I figured out, oh, like if I just set up for this thing the way I would set up to play, a high C in the practice room, it'll work fine. It's the same deal. And so if I just take the same breath, if I don't put the horn on my face 8 bars before,
right?
Duh. If I don't breathe like I'm trying to rescue a drowned 80-year-old man.
That's why your wife is coming to check on your warm-up, is because you get set to play a high C and you just sit there for 8 minutes and then just ready to eke it out.
Yeah. So just things like that. That's what I put in the notebook, and those are the thoughts I keep. Just some of the biggest things are just reminders of like where to drop the tension and where how the lips should feel in the mouthpiece and where the breath should go, and just simple those little technical ideas for me that frees up your brain then just to play music and enjoy it.
How often do you read that stuff? Do you just write it, or do you read it regularly?
Once I write it, I sort of remember it for a while. You know how it is if you have an epiphany-ish thing, it's easy to remember for a while. But what I find really helpful is to go back and look from last year or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because this has happened before where I'll be playing I'll play a lick that's come around again, and I'll think, this was easier last time. I don't get it, and I'll look it up, and I was like, oh, I used a different mouthpiece for that lick. I used my trumpet flugel for that soft low F or something like that. It just kind of brings it all back.
You have more than one mouthpiece? I think last time I counted there were like 320.
Oh.
Do you know how many of them I use?
Well,
in my world it's 313.
Yes.
320. You got to get it up to 366. You have one for every day of leap year.
Ooh, I get to use my leap year mouthpiece for this performance of Heldenleben.
Hello, my precious.
Excellent.
Oh man, it's I try mouthpieces constantly, but I've been playing the same one for almost 20 years.
What do you play? I don't care, but our listeners will. So, what do you play?
I play a Jeff Park 640-285, so it's like a 1.5 B, basically. Yeah.
That was all clicks and buzzes what you just said to me, but that will. But that's useful information to a bunch of people who listen. So,
how do tuba mouthpieces work? Is it like higher?
Blow in the bigger end.
It essentially massages your face. I mean, it's so large that it warms you up.
That's great.
Yeah, it is kind of nice.
I feel like to me they almost look like those masks that they show you how to use on the airplane. You know, like you just your whole face.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, they also train you that you need to make sure that your horn is up to your face before you help the bass trombonist on your right tell them that it's time for them to play.
hey, that's a real thing, man. Bass trombonists, it's a hard gig. They fall asleep sometimes.
Hey, well, and think about this. Tubas, we sit there in orchestras and we have like lots of rests and lots of rests and lots of rest. On our left is no one, and on our right is sometimes someone who's less helpful than no one. So we're like, and conductors, are sometimes are good with cues, and then there's the other times, and yeah, we're on an island, so it's yeah.
And you're sandwiched there, like you're sandwiched behind the double basses, and
our lives are hard. So
I tell you what I love about tuba players. Do you prefer tubist or tuba player?
He likes tubaist.
Tubist to me sounds like a plumber.
Yeah.
Bring in the
hey man,
this pipe's never gonna fit.
If the check clears, you can call me a plumber. You can there's kind of a wide range of things you can call me before I get upset. So
I hear you on that. But I always find with the tuba players in my in my career that you guys are like you're thoughtful, intelligent, responsible. Like you're like there's like a librarian component to your brain where you're always interested in new repertoire and
I like where this is. I don't like where this is going.
No,
I can already tell.
This only for this moment. There's no shoe to drop. I have great respect for the tuba players and who I have played with and Al and Gene and Mike Moore and
you've played with some good ones.
Chuck, yeah, I mean I've been really lucky. And it's for a trumpet player to sit on top of the sound, to feel that connection, man. It's honestly the most sort of heartening and musically secure feeling to feel connected to that. And some years ago, a few years back, in Chicago, before I left, Gene started moving and sitting behind Jay and me, and I want to make sure I get the grammar right for you guys.
Yeah,
I
picked up on.
We're very particular about that.
And it was cool. It was odd in some ways. It was different, certainly, but it was a really visceral, like really amazing, like to feel that sound like in your chest was great. And I felt it helped the brass section stack up and really vertically to line up. We've done it here a few times too in the Phil with like really huge pieces, and we'll sometimes Bear will come and sit right behind Joe and I, and it's a really cool feeling. I don't think George Curran's a big fan of it, but it's nice for me to be able to feel that. Which, first trumpet player, I don't even think other people have feelings.
Yeah.
You don't. Why would they?
Oh, you stepped on that rake yourself there, Chris.
That's right.
The speaking of Joe, I saw a photo on social media the other day that I immediately saved and sent to him. There was an apartment building, and there was a homemade sign out of a window on the right that said "Go Yankees," and then out of the left-hand window was another hand-painted sign, and there was an arrow, and it said "Fuck the Yankees and fuck that guy." And I sent it to him, and he wrote back, "Ha ha 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 ha! That would totally be us if we lived next to each other." And I said, "Yeah, that is true."
That's funny. That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one.
I was thinking about that laugh Joe has. Ha 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 ha. Like the loudest moments of my professional career, like the loudest playing I've ever done in my life, has been in a couple of concerts here, and Mahler 6 being one. Well, there have been a lot, but every time we have a concert where I remember there was a Mahler 1 we did last year, maybe 2 years ago, and Joe and I we really got a hold of that lick, that lick. We really got a hold of it one night in particular, and all those concerts, every single one of them, when they really are locked and kick in like that, I look at Joe after, and Joe kind of go.
Hey, that's a good Joe right there. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I have no hearing in my left ear, but it's totally worth it. Totally.
Hey, Lance, why don't you tell the people about the Papert people?
You know, there's a group of people that we like to refer to as the Papert people. And the Papert people are people who are at the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, high on the bluff overlooking the Monongahela River.
You don't have to read a brochure. Just do the spot.
Anyway, they are a hopefully proud sponsor of the show and have been a proud sponsor, hopefully, for a long, long time. And if you're interested in learning about what is going on at the Mary Papert School of Music in the brass area, and why wouldn't you, you can click on a link in the show notes, and it'll take you to a page designed specifically for listeners of the Brass Junkies. So please do that so that you can let them know how much we appreciate their support. And extra special thanks to Jim, Kinda Sweaty Nova, for making it possible.
Is this AC on the fritz, or
I don't know.
So, all right, Chris, before we get your advice for Jens, I just need to know what it's like that you've climbed to like the top of your profession. I mean, being the principal drummer of the Chicago Symphony and of the New York Philharmonic is, I think it's safe to say, that's rarefied air. And yet you still live in the shadow of your brother Mike. What is the? Are you resentful of that, or do you even want to talk about it?
I think if I could grow a beard the way that he can, I think my life would have been a lot different.
Did you say your life or your wife?
I'm going to stop at life.
He does have a nice beard.
He has a nice beard.
Yeah, he does. He does have a nice beard.
Yeah, here's a story about Mike. I'll tell you a good story about Mike. So,
Awesome.
We're pretty far apart in age. We're about 10 years apart, and you know, he was about 5-6 years old when I was in high school. Got a driver's license, got a little freedom, you know, and I remember once I got a date to go out with a girl from the band who I'd always wanted to go out with, and we were going to go play putt-putt. And I was, really excited to be like, show her I was a nice guy and, all this. And take her for a ride in my brown Datsun.
Datsun. There you go.
Yeah. And I know what a girl likes, guys.
Yeah.
So he's I guess he's 6.5 at that point, and he insisted on going, and he insisted that he had to go, and I was like, you can't go. You can't go. He ended up threatening me with a golf club until I would allow him to go. And so that's my brother. And I tell that story, and I tell it as a compliment to him, because he is a headstrong but seriously creative dude, and he works hard. He's got all the things you need to make it. He's stubborn, and he's tenacious, and he's persistent, and he gets it done. So I wish I didn't hate him so much, but it's fine.
If he just shave his beard off and just quit flaunting it, then maybe you guys could reconnect on a meaningful level. For anyone who doesn't know his brother, and you should listen to his brother's interview with us, which was from a while ago at this point. But his brother,
don't listen to it. I wouldn't.
Is his brother? I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it happened.
Okay.
That his brother is a trumpet player in the Boston Symphony Orchestra and gets to spend half of his life answering questions about his big brother Chris. So which is pretty funny. So we told him that we were going to just ask you about being his brother the whole time, and he was in support of that idea. So
it's weird that he'd want to make something entirely about himself. It's not like
Well, we weren't going to do it, but then he threatened us with a golf club.
Yeah, it's like and legal action, which seemed really extreme. I was like, okay, fine, we'll make fun of him. We're usually a very serious show, but we'll break character for this for you, Mike.
Can you sue someone? Can you sue someone 30 years after an assault? Is that possible?
I don't know.
All right, here's what's weird is it was July 18th, so we're recording this on July 19th, His episode went up on July 18th
That's
of
funny.
2017.
Wow.
So 3
That's
years
right.
ago.
It was a few years ago. Wow.
Yep.
This is
That's
the
great.
the Martin month, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's got a good audition story too. His when he won his Boston job, he worked very hard for that. He had a real organized practice plan, and he spent a long time and really like working with a ton of discipline and a ton of organization and focus. And then he had the same experience when he went onto the stage to play. He felt free and he just let it all out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've heard, speaking of Boston, I've heard Mike Roylance talk before about he had one moment that was very brief that was in the middle of the finals when he kind of, it wasn't as specific, if I remember correctly, as like where am I going to live, but it was very much like how much is riding on this right now, and that he immediately did the equivalent of smacking himself across the face and was like, and then just played the crap out of the tuba for a few more minutes, and then he got to worry about where he was living and what this meant for he and his. I think he was already married at that point, but anyway, yeah, it's.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, and I think it's important to clarify that I think when students are when you're in the I remember I used to think this. I used to think that, well, if somebody's a professional, if they've got a job, if they've got a gig, if they're getting called for the gigs, they've got it all figured out. They've got the answers, and I just got to find the answer for me. But it's really not the case. I mean, I mean, there are things I've figured out, but I said, I mentioned earlier, we deal with the same parts of ourselves that are helpful for being a professional musician and the parts that aren't. And that's true. I have those moments in concerts all the time. I think there'll be many times that I think, man, I'm kind of tired. Like, it's been a long day. And I turn the page like, nope, come on, focus. Here we go. 2 more pages to go. Come on, buddy. Like 10 minutes of music left. And that happens a lot, those lapses in focus or the lapse in concentration or the lapse, especially in confidence, that can happen. I think Arturo said once, trumpet players think about their chops all the time, but really, and I think this is true for all of us, that we really play with confidence. Yeah, I mean, we can play our best on really bad face, and with a great head and a great confidence and a great freedom of spirit. But you can have the best chops in the world, and if you don't have your head in the right place, it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter.
Well, and I love to make fun of trumpet players, but the fact is that playing in an orchestra, if there's a trumpet player who's playing with literally half of the opinion that you're playing with, it makes it so easy to do the job of the tuba or the second trombone or the third horn. And likewise, when there's a bass trombone next to us, or lead trombone like principal. I don't want him to sue me. I think he's principal like Joe. I mean, again, just super opinionated, and it's easy to then play opinionated yourself from the tuba seat or any of them, and then match, and then it makes it easy.
Yeah, that's what I love about the New York Phil Brass is that when I came and played a trial week. After the audition, and I'm playing something with Joe. Joe's like, "Hey, let's play this thing." I don't know if you've heard Joe likes to run through stuff.
Yeah.
Which I love. That's great.
Yep.
I love that. So we were running through something. This is in like my second rehearsal on trial, and we're played it a couple times. And Al Bear leans down and he goes, "Are you guys seriously going to play it like that?" And it was that moment that I was like, yes, this is my place. I love this. This is great. Let's just get it out and be on. Like let's talk it out. This is awesome.
Well, Joe and I played in Banff a number of years ago, and we were doing the Malcolm Arnold, and something in the second movement. We were out of tune, and we stopped. And before he even had a chance to say "Let's run it," I was like, "Hey man, we were out. I was sharp because I'm just it's Joe Alessi. I'm assuming that I was the one that was out of tune." And he goes, "No man, I was flat. Leave it where it was." I was like, "All right, whatever you say, man. Whatever you say. You're Joe Alessi. You tell me what to do. I'll do it." Yeah.
I've had the same thing with him before. We'll check something and he'll say, "No. It was me. But we also have experiences where he doesn't ever say to me, "Hey, I think you're sharp there," but he'll say, "Hey, can we try that note?" And we'll play it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I need to come down." And he's like,
just the nod, yes.
But I mean, the man has played long tones with a drone, for many hours, and I've done it too, but he's got hours on me, and so he honestly he inspires me all the time with his work ethic and with his commitment and his serious attitude and his desire to make it the best it can be. So it's great. It's great fun. It's I mean, I'm gonna name my next hernia Joe, but it's still great fun.
That took me a second. I was like, oh, yeah, there.
My first hernia's name was Charlie.
Moving right along. So
you can cut that out.
No.
Not the hernia. Don't cut the hernia out.
Again, moving right along. So, speaking of maybe hernia is this problem, our dear friend Jens Lindemann, who I know that you know quite well, we're wondering if maybe you're the person who can provide him some insights into these chop problems that he's been experiencing for so many years now.
I think if he could get off of the 14A4A and play like a real mouthpiece, that'd be helpful.
I've been telling him that for years.
I think also if he didn't dress like a Las Vegas casino billboard, that might help too.
I didn't know what was going to be at the end of this. I was like, Las Vegas casino.
Yeah.
Lots of ways. Showgirl.
Carpet.
Slot machine. Buffet.
I should have gone with buffet. I like that.
Buffet,
oh,
Jens, you look like a lobster in a Jello mold.
I love that song.
Well,
I think look, he did a great job. He really came a long way emotionally.
He did, yeah.
Now I gotta ask, was that painting? Did he send you that unsolicited, or did you commission him to do that, or?
Well, I told him I thought he just needed to take some time and find himself.
So he did a finger painting for you.
Yeah, I just assumed that was the thing he put on the floor to empty his spit on, and that's what comes out of his horn.
Some pinks, some blues, some greens.
Yellows.
Oh.
I did tell him though. In seriousness, I did tell him that when he started going through this, and he tried some things. He tried embouchure change. It didn't really work. I did tell him to. The thing I've always done if I'm having a really bad day, if I've had just like a really bad chop time, is I put on my tails, or
Only.
or in his case, a giraffe suit or whatever it is that he performs in.
Giraffes.
And you run a bath for yourself, nice and hot. A lot of bubble bath. Maybe some lavender, like some
Where
lavender.
is this going?
And you get in and you sit and you got to have shoes, everything. You got to have your shoes on, everything. And you get in and you sit and you just play. You just play the entire first Getchell practical studies, the whole thing, and you take your time as long as it takes, and it's always fixed everything for me, always.
So lavender is important.
Lavender's good, but if you want like a strawberry bath bomb, that's fine. That's always fixed my problems.
That's his next album is actually Strawberry Bath Bomb.
A collection of NHL team fight songs. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, Canada, all 12 keys.
Oh, I think my favorite thing is that you are absolutely a guest that is big enough that there will be some people who have never listened to the podcast before who don't know the running joke on him, and so there's going to be people that are really upset that we're making fun of chop problems he's not actually having.
No, he's definitely not having problems.
he's
confidence problems.
Yeah, he's like, no. I mean, he's spiritually bankrupt and emotionally vacant, but but his chops are fine. His chops are totally fine.
I do get a chop problem from time to time, though. I mean, I get because of sort of the way my setup, my teeth and everything. I play a little bit on the left side, And so I'll get, if it's really, really hard schedule, I'll get a bit of a cut and a kind of a swelling going on one side. And so that's, for me, that's always been something I have to watch. And in all seriousness, the Getchell etudes, like nice, slow, easy, short tunes like that, those actually really do help with that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of truth in that.
Just minus the disturbing picture of the tails and the shoes in a lavender bath. That's good.
I use that for something else.
Again, moving right along.
I'm writing actual chop problem advice.
Yeah, it's like that's the first time we've asked like way over 100 famous brass players, and we've never gotten a useful answer to that question.
I think just for me, like, or going back to the beginning, like going back to the first pages of Arbon, just the easy, slow half notes and quarter notes, and really keeping it soft. And even if it doesn't speak, not panicking. That's the big thing, is like, don't panic and force it, because if you force it, that defeats the purpose. You get the swelling back, or you get, so just kind of trying to let your body ease back in again. That's always been the key for me, because a lot of times if this happens to me, we'll have a Tuesday night holdover from last week, Wednesday rehearsals, Thursday dress, Thursday concert, Friday concert, and we do a lot of Friday matinees here. So you'll get so you had Tuesday night, Wednesday, then you have Thursday morning, Thursday night, then you have Friday morning, and that's usually when it hits me. That's usually, if it's gonna hit me, it's then. And so then you've got all Friday off usually, and most of Saturday, but that's a long time to not play, because you get super stiff, and that's, for me, it never works. So, because our mouthpiece is small and it hurts really hard, and so it's just like doing that like every hour and a half, just a little bit at a time, has always helped me kind of keep blood in there, keep it loose, and sort of get some kind of focus back.
Cool.
So
that reminds me of an exercise that I heard Joe talk about in a masterclass, which is the coming in on like niente on a note with just a super even, just to really, with a crescendo, and just to really get the nexus of the vibration and not forcing it. And that's good.
That's great advice. I remember as a student going to a seminar with Phil Smith and Joe, and I remember Phil talking about breath attacks and how he'd show us how he loved to be able to start a note without the tongue, and being able to start from the same thing, from niente, but get resonance right away, and just let the sound be broad even when it's 4 Ps.
Yeah.
Just because your air and your lips are connected in the horn. And he was that guy, Phil, man, that guy, to be in just to sit in the same room with him, when he would play the trumpet, you just suddenly, like, your body osmotically, is that a word, would just learn, like, it just felt it, like, oh wow, that's right. And I'd pick up the horn and sound completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a powerful musician right there.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's well said. Well, that was actually a poignant way to end this. I mean, we could keep talking and ruin it, which is kind of our brand, but let's just bail. This has been wonderful. We are going to have Chris hang on for just a second to record the bonus episode, and for our Patreon patrons, which you can learn at patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, you can get access to bonus episodes with a ton of people. It's a long list at this point, but Chris, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram, and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.